All right. This is Ranking of Cage Part 2. It Could Happen to You. I'm Colton Wallace here with Scott Kudron and Josh Lieto.
Hey
Um,
guys.
so, first things first, we'll start with the synopsis from Just Watch. Charlie Lang is a simple, kind hearted New York City cop. When he realizes he has no money to tip a waitress, Yvonne, Lang offers her half of the winnings of his lottery ticket. Amazingly, the ticket happens to be a winner in a sum of 4 million. True to his word, Lang proceeds to share the prize money with Yvonne, which infuriates his greedy wife Muriel. Not content with the arrangement, Muriel begins scheming to take all the money. So, this movie opens up where it kind of shows you Charlie, who's a good guy cop. And then you see the other two characters, Yvonne, who is a waitress living the struggle, but she has a good heart. And Charlie's wife, Muriel, who seems to be very status obsessed and vain and is not pleased with the life they're living. So basically, the first kind of scene of the movie is showing Charlie as just being a good guy cop. I believe he delivers a baby on a bus.
Yep. Yep. That was one of the scenes. Brief
Um,
scenes.
but so then it shows him and his partner. They're going into a diner to eat some lunch or something. So they go to order food, and Yvonne is their waitress. And then they get a police call and they have to leave. So then he goes to pay the bill and tip her, realizes he doesn't have the money to tip her, and then says, "Hey, I'll give you half the winnings of this lottery ticket." And she's like, "Oh, wow, thanks." Because you'll find out she's already having a bad day. She's having a bad time with life currently. Um, so then after that, we get to see Charlie's life at home with Muriel, his wife, and his wife is really you get the portrayal that she is not like happy with their current situation and she wants them to be like striving for more.
hmm
Um,
Yeah, I might back up just a second, just for
yeah,
like
go ahead.
because you see Muriel first at like because it looks like she's a hairdresser or a
All
hairstylist.
right. Yep.
Or wait, was she getting her hair cut?
No, she works at a salon in the
That's right.
beginning.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, and like the conversation Muriel's having with the woman that she's cutting her hair is like she's like, oh yeah, he's just a cop. He brings home money, I guess.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah. So
So
they really want to drill that in.
yeah, you really see the true love in the marriage.
Yeah, they have no connection at all throughout the whole thing.
Right.
I don't even know why they married at all.
Well, they were, I think at some point it says they were together like in like high school or when they were teenagers, and then they just stayed together since then. But yeah, through the whole movie, it doesn't even seem like they like each other at all. Like not
Mm,
even remotely.
yeah.
hmm
And he doesn't and he seems totally complacent and does not care. And
Right.
she seems all up in arms about everything.
Yeah.
And it's like and I don't know, felt like that character was intended to be annoying.
Right.
Because it was
Yeah.
it felt like it was she didn't have any redeeming lines or moments at all.
Yeah.
There's a moment when he's giving money to the like police fund. She's sitting up on the stage and she's just like, oh damn, am I $10,000? Like what? This is and it's like you're on stage in like front of and you're on TV and she's just like so shameless. She is like so shamelessly wants that money. It's an
Right.
icky character.
Yeah,
I kind of
she gets even pettier than that though, because like you see the blind guy with like the cup when they're entering someplace, then you see Nicolas Cage's
Yeah.
character stick a little bit of money in the cup, and then she just pulls it out.
She's like, you can't give money to every homeless person on the street, and it's like, wow, what a stingy person.
yeah.
God.
So we see kind of their interactions for the first time when he's at home there that first night, and he makes Jiffy Pop on the stove with like the old Jiffy Pops that have like the
Yeah,
tin foil.
it was a nice throwback. I was like, oh yeah, those.
Have you? I've never had an experience that's good with those. I feel like they're always subpar.
I don't remember. I was such a small child. I was like what my grandma would have.
Right.
Yeah, but I've
Uh,
never tried one. Well, growing up, I always had like the bagged microwave popcorn.
sure, but just
Sure.
the kind you put on the stove. It's just wild to see that now. Like, it seems so like inefficient and it never seems to work correctly. But sure enough, they win with their lotto ticket for $4 million. His wife's Mariel's freaking out. And at some point, he then confesses that he promised this waitress half of the winnings. And in her typical fashion, she's very angry about that. And I think she probably calls him a moron or something.
She's like, they don't even show the confession. Oh, they like cut to outside, and all you hear is like her scream, and she's like, "You promised money to a random stranger," and then thus begins the struggles over the money.
Right. So then eventually, though, he does decide to give Yvonne the money, give Yvonne half of the money, and
well, he actually gives her a choice. Right.
Oh, right.
He goes into the restaurant. And he's like, well, he's like, you can pick, I'll either give you double your tip, or I'll give you a big, just to like double tip of what you're supposed to get, or you can split half of this lottery ticket. And he doesn't tell her.
Right.
He's like A or B. And she's like, well, I'll take B. I'll take the lottery ticket.
Yeah.
And he's like, you made the right decision because you get $2 million.
And is that the same scene where he gives her like the glasses necklace? The glasses, like,
yeah, he starts off with that. He's like, first off, I have a gift.
Yeah. Which seemed really weird, but
well, I mean, I feel like it made sense when you consider the context of the earlier scenes where it's like she's constantly fidgeting with her glasses. I mean, what is it? The other waitress, like, as she was like looking for them, the other waitress points out, "Oh, they're on your head."
Right.
Yeah, and at one point, Nicolas Cage finds them for her.
Yeah, it's just showing how much of a nice guy he is. Like they really drive that point home.
Right.
It kind of all the characters in this movie, I feel like, are very like single noted. Like you have the wife, and I feel like Nicolas Cage is just the good guy cop, and he just follows that through the whole movie. And like that's his whole thing. And then even like some of the other, like the boss at the diner that Yvonne works for, who just sits behind that table and yells all the time, he feels like a cartoon character. Like he just sits there and yells about shit. It just cuts to him yelling.
They give him coffee with cigarettes in, and he likes it. Yeah, right.
Right. He's like the Charlie Brown teacher.
Right.
So anyways, then when they're like accepting the award, when they're accepting the money for the lottery winners, there's reporters there, and one of the reporters asks the Yvonne, is this the biggest tip she'd ever received? Like, what a dumb fucking question. No, I received a tip bigger than this massive amount of money.
Right.
I feel like that's just meant to be like a lighthearted, trying to get people to smile kind of thing as they're in front of the camera.
I guess, but I mean, that's bad reporting, if you ask me.
I feel like that's kind of what the whole movie was like. I felt like it was like a little bit of a window into just how, like, in the late 80s, life was just like so different.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. And it was just like, this was like the biggest deal. Like, get on TV and ask, is this the biggest tip you ever got? It's like the dumbest question ever. Obviously it is. Right. And it's just, I don't know, another movie that was just all cheese all the way through made me feel physically sick after finishing watching it.
God. One thing I will say is I have never seen paparazzi follow lottery winners as closely as they did in this movie. Right. That felt so contrived.
One question, was this set in the 80s? So the movie came out in 1994. Was the movie actually set in the 80s? I didn't catch if they said that at all.
I didn't either.
Don't know.
It might be unsaid.
Yeah.
Because you have the dates of their, like, I think like 1984 is like their anniversary or something.
There was also a really big subtext of like crime in the city. Right. And like how like Nicolas Cage is this police officer, but like I feel like that very much talks to like 70s and 80s experiences in the city where like cities were really unsafe, especially like they were much more unsafe back then.
Right.
And I feel like
it seems like the 80s. It seems like late 80s, but I'm not certain.
I mean, I would say that right. That's the context, right? Like if it came out in '94, they started making it in '93. Like it
Right.
just came out of the '80s.
Yeah.
That is, yeah.
So, speaking of crime, the next scene you get is the robbery scene where Nicolas Cage is getting coffee from what we find out is a shop that he frequents. So he's getting coffee and he's talking to the store clerk, and the store clerk says something about his wife being sick and not there. And he's in his, his good guy cop sensors are going off. Then he comes back out and talks to his partner, and he's like, "Hey, our favorite Korean store clerk's getting robbed." And his partner says, "What? How?" And he says, "Well, he said his wife's not working, but she would work no matter what. She would work if she was on her deathbed."
Wow.
Well, then there was also the fact that he gave him the coffee on the house, which apparently isn't a thing that the store owner does. So.
Oh, that's yeah. So he jumps into action, goes into the through the basement, through the back to try and sneak up on the crooks, and then he throws a can at one of them, and then he tackles the other one through a doorway. I love it when he chucks the can and pegs the guy in the face. So, and then once he does that, his partner dives in and he's like, "Are you okay?" And it looks in he's been shot in the arm, and then I think he like sees his arm that is shot, and then he faints after seeing it. But either way, he's then a hero.
Right.
And it kind of shows him being a hero. And you see him walking around, and he wears white New Balances, which kind of I feel like fits with his good guy middle-aged cop that he would wear white New Balances when he's on duty. Then he goes to an event for him, and then he donates more money to some other charity. And then his wife again is displeased with him giving away more money. Right, that's the one you were referencing earlier, Josh.
Right.
So
But I mean,
following
at this point, the movie is basically over. I mean, there's only one outcome here, right?
Right. Yeah.
And it's it's just was so slow in this part of the movie. It was like I was like, just do it already, get it over with.
Right, and I kind of feel like it felt like it took too long for the movie to get to the lottery thing in the first place, and then it also felt like it kind of didn't have within like 20 minutes after that, it was already kind of set where it was going.
Right.
But yeah, so the next scene, there's a boat party that I guess Charlie and Muriel were going to, and also Yvonne was going to. But so Muriel gets on the boat, and then Charlie sees that Yvonne is having some issue with the cab driver, and she's got to pay him. She doesn't have the right bills on her. So Nicolas Cage comes over, or Charlie comes over to pay the cab driver. And then by the time they get it all sorted out, they turn around and the boat's gone. So then that leads us to two separate scenes where Muriel is on the boat and Charlie and Yvonne are on a date. What'd you guys think about this part?
I was basically tuned out at this point. I was just like, I hate this movie. It was so bad. I was so annoyed. I just was like rolling my eyes at everything they said. This was a scene where his wife was like kind of, what do you call it? Wasn't she like kind of gallivanting with these like rich guys?
Yeah.
And it's like there's like a subtext of like, oh, I bet she's like about to get down with these guys or something.
Right. And it kind of highlights one rich investor guy specifically that you see. You see him a couple times.
An investor.
Yeah, I don't know that his like exact profession or anything is defined. He's just kind of a rich looking guy that Muriel's
he's a rich asshole basically.
Yeah, he was talking about like stocks or investments and things when he's introduced, and then Muriel just sucks up to him the entire time. The dinner I thought was more interesting because then you have Charlie kind of like talking about like, this is my life, this is what I do, this is why I'm with Muriel, despite the fact that we have nothing in common, or I'm questioning my sanity every day I go back to my apartment.
Yeah, but I also feel like we had already been kind of told this as a viewer, so it just felt really boring for this whole scene to happen where he labors on about it, because I feel like the whole part of the story the movie's been telling us up to this point is literally the stuff he's now saying to her. So it just
Yeah.
kind of this is, for me, you're getting into the most boring part of this movie when you enter these two scenes, because to me this date scene, it just feels weird and awkward and mega boring. Like, it's like, I know all this stuff. This is the movie I've been watching. It's like they're telling you the things the movie has like told you, only they're just literally outright saying it to you now.
I mean, you're not wrong.
And I don't know what else you put there, but to me this was where it started to get really boring.
Yeah, I could hardly pay attention at this point.
Yeah. So then after this, the next day, Charlie's like going on a date with Yvonne, kind of. They're rollerblading together. Charlie rollerblades into a lake because
Great scene. I rewound that part to see it happen again. I was like, oh no, he's not gonna go in that pond, is he? And he went right into it.
I guess just like in Moonstruck, we had a Nicolas Cage moment. I think maybe him going into the lake's probably the best Nicolas Cage moment in this movie.
Yeah.
Rollerblading and then falling into a lake.
Which I wonder, that probably wasn't even him, right? That was probably like a stunt double.
It's too dangerous to rollerblade into a lake.
I mean, I wonder if he's just crazy enough, he might do that.
Yeah, I do all my own stunts, like rollerblading.
Rollerblading into a pond.
Sorry. Yeah. So then after that, though, they're buying subway tickets for people, and everybody's stampeding towards the subway because they're buying free fares, which seems wild.
Right.
Oh, they're buying free fares. I got to turn around and go somewhere now.
I feel like couple.
Yeah, I feel it. I mean, I just felt like like in New York City, like everybody's always trying, like there's always people getting on.
Yeah.
Well, so it's more of like,
that's fine. But literally there was a scene where some guy in the subway saying, hey, they're buying fares for everybody. And people like are stampeding, turning around and stampeding down there.
It just like goes to like, was that even like, how is that even a reasonable thing? Like, was that reasonable like back in the day?
Okay, think about this yourself. You're like, okay, you just got off a train because you're like going home or you're going somewhere. And then they're like, oh, do you want a free fare to go somewhere else? Probably not. Like, unless you're going somewhere, you're not going to say, I'm going to take this free fare now to change my current trajectory for no reason.
Yeah, I feel like this movie was all about zeitgeist and like feeling in the society, and like what it showed me is how like the people are basically just like like roving like endless masses, and they like they kind of
Sims.
Yeah, it was everybody was kind of stupid, and I just
So
so then they're buying all the people, and then that's great. Then everyone loves them because then they're like the subway couple or whatever.
Well, then they're at a baseball stadium with like children,
right? Then
I guess they're like renting out the baseball stadium or something so the children can have fun. And then
I don't think that was just a baseball stadium. I think that was like Yankee Stadium that they rented out.
Yeah, so
it was the Knicks. Remember, he bought his friend the Knicks tickets.
Yeah, he
bought his friend the season tickets. Yeah,
right. I guess I assume that they were. Wait, are the Knicks are basketball or baseball?
The Knicks are the NBA team. The Yankees and the Mets are the New York baseball teams.
Yeah, so they're in some big stadium, and it's not the
baseball stadium. Yeah. So, but to me, this is just it's so boring at this point. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is the point of this?
I was thinking of you, Colton, because I just was thinking about how much you hate baseball. And I was like, Colton would think this is like the worst like present ever. Like just go run around in a baseball field.
Yeah. So, and I was kind of like, this is lame. And my wife Jessica was sitting there and she said, no, they're showing you that they have the same values and they're falling in love. So that was your them falling in love section, but it was so boring. And then after this, a picture shows up like on an article or newspaper or something that Muriel sees of Yvonne and Charlie together at the baseball stadium, and there's some story about them. So at this point, Muriel kicks Charlie out of the house. So Charlie's like looking for somewhere to stay. So Charlie goes to a hotel, and actually the Plaza Hotel. And actually, when she kicks him out, Muriel, this is the kind of the last straw in the whole thing. And Muriel says like she has wings and she needs to fly, basically, like kicking Charlie out and telling him that she's like past this, I guess, in a way.
Yeah, she wants a divorce.
Yeah, I think she says he's just blue collar. He's just a blue collar guy, and he's not going to change. Or he says that maybe.
Well, she calls him a blue collar, like just like a blue collar guy,
right.
And then it was Johnny who said like that's not going to change.
Charlie.
What did I say? Johnny? Charlie.
Johnny.
Yeah. So then Nicolas Cage is going to the Plaza Hotel, but also at the same time, you see that Yvonne goes to her house and she opens the door, and then there's like some bag that she's like, what's unfamiliar with is what we gather. And then you find out her husband's there at her apartment, who her husband racked up all her credit card debt. And so all the credit card debt previously in the movie was causing her trouble. And that was kind of one of her problems earlier in the movie, is that her husband got all this debt on her credit.
And also like wiped out her account. Didn't he like took all her money before she got the $2 million?
I don't know. I know it kind of seemed like he was coming after it, but I don't know that he ever did. But he was at the house and he talked to her, and I don't think they really resolved anything. She just left.
Yeah.
Well, because I mean the whole thing is like he was after her money.
Yeah.
And then she just wanted him out. So
right.
But because they were still married, and I'm guessing his name was still technically on the lease of the apartment, she's like, if you won't leave, then I will. So
yeah, and it didn't really explain that, but she did leave, right? Like she left. So then we get to the hotel. She goes to a hotel too, and of course they end up at the same Plaza Hotel. Like they're both going to the Plaza Hotel, and she's going to check in, and then he's checking in behind her, and of course their rooms are right next to each other with a connecting door. And then like the guys who let them in the rooms come out and say, oh, that was the waitress who won the lottery. And then the other guy's like, oh, that was the guy. It's like in this world, this story has been so sensationalized that everyone knows about it. And it's like the biggest thing, because after this, they open the door and then they come together, and then that's it. They're like, after that point, I think we're to understand they're together and in love. Like, do you guys feel like that was the scene too, where that was like finalized?
Yes, I'm pretty sure they consummated their relationship after the during the fade to dark. So
right, we can only assume.
Are we to the hot air balloon yet?
No,
we're not there. Okay, that's where I'm at. I'm just imagining that hot air balloon float off into space.
So, but then so the next morning they leave the hotel, and there's photographers everywhere at the hotel. You had mentioned this earlier, Kudrow. Like, why are there so many photographers just photographing these people who won the lottery?
I feel like, go for it.
It's like Kudrow. Disregarding the fact that, the writing. So I mean, like the fact that they even went to the exact same Plaza Hotel at the exact same time under different circumstances is contrived enough as it is.
Right.
And now we're having this paparazzi, like so what? I'm guessing like the two bellboys or whatever just immediately called like the New York Times or whatever. It's like, hey, the lottery winners are here.
Right.
Like,
right.
It makes no sense.
Yeah, hot story.
I do feel like there was something that they were tapping into that has, I think, changed since then, which it is true that in the 80s and 90s, news was really all people had, right? Like people would turn on the TV and the most interesting thing was like the crazy shit that was happening in the moment around the world, right?
Right.
And so I feel like, whereas now we have all these different sources and whatever, It's just different. But I feel like it was tapping into that like the news would like news stations would like would basically hunt down like any story. But it did seem I mean, putting aside the whole fact of them being at the same place at the same time, which is just another example of them jumping the shark in the movie, like it just would not have happened.
Right.
But besides that, it's just it did feel really overdone. It's like now they're just permanently famous people because they won the lottery one time, and they didn't even win the biggest amount.
Right. Yeah.
Like they're like, oh, isn't it like Gary Delabate from the Howard Stern show is there and he won like $9 million or something? They're like bowlers, and he's like, I'm gonna put in a bowling alley and whatever. And I'm like, is that Baba Booey right there? And I think it is.
Yeah.
He's like, but they don't care about those like fat bowlers in their tracksuits, but like this cop and this waitress, it's just like how desperate were people to like feel as something that they would follow this story.
Right.
I guess if I had, I mean, like I'm sitting here decrying it too, but I guess if I had to play devil's advocate, I mean, I guess I can see maybe where there's like, the feel good story of the fact that this waitress was hard on her luck, all these debts, and here comes Prince Charming to give her $2 million to solve all of our problems. But
the thing is like it sucks because like that it has to happen, it has to happen, and therefore it does, and it has to happen in order for her, you know what I mean? Like it just has to happen from the beginning.
Even if it was like I feel like it would even be more excusable if it wasn't the fact that like it's very clearly like front page news on all the newspapers that you see. It's not even like on page like 20 or whatever of the newspaper. It's page 1.
Yeah.
With like the picture and everything.
Right.
Like yeah.
So I guess after this, we have the scene where Charlie's meeting with Mariel and like with lawyers about their divorce, and Charlie says she can have all the money, and he's letting her take all the money. But after that, she says she declares she wants the rest of the money, like the money that was given to other people, the money that was essentially given to Yvonne. She said she never agreed to that, and she wants that money back. So then that's what leads us to the big court scene where they're in the court and they're arguing over the rest of this money. And I guess what happens in the end basically is Mariel gets awarded all the money, which seems absolutely insane to me. And she also got a boob job too, which she talked about earlier in the movie, and then she comes back later and has that. But I just don't like what court would be like, yeah, after this length of time, now you get to have all this money back. Like, how would that even work? Because a lot of that money's already been spent.
Yeah.
I feel like it
get
just
on this.
Yeah, I just feel like they just did it because they had to do that.
Right.
They can't banish her back to Brooklyn and then she has nothing and her life is ruined, even though she was an annoying character nobody liked.
Right. And that whole her not getting money would have had to been resolved before she got the winnings. Like
right
now after, like, oh yeah, you can have all this money back. So that part was kind of senseless to me. They go through a whole court hearing where he Charlie got the numbers wrong because they were like her birth date and their anniversary date, but he got one of the numbers wrong. So his lawyer says, this was his decision basically because he didn't pick the exact numbers. But then they go to Mariel on the stand and she's like, my dead father's ghost was there helping pick the numbers. I'm like, what?
Yeah, I can't like there's no way.
So yeah, that scene's just wildly unbelievable.
Yeah, and what I couldn't figure out was the title of the movie, because every single one of these characters was awful and annoying and had a bad life, and I wouldn't want to have any of their lives or be in any of these situations.
Well, I think it could happen to you is referring to winning the lottery, right?
Yeah, but it's just like so. I hate how like aspirational it is, and it's
Yeah.
just like it's so. It's just the Kudrow used the right word when he said contrived.
Yeah,
I just think
definitely.
the whole movie was just like I don't know. They were just trying to like make a very formulaic, horrible romantic comedy sort of movie in the
Right.
context of 1994, and it's just very mediocre and not memorable.
Yeah. So after the hearing and after they award Meryl all the money, Yvonne runs out of the courtroom and runs to the diner, and of course, Charlie chases her there. Um, Yvonne's like, "I ruined your life." Charlie says, "No." We figure out they both love each other, and they decide they don't need the money. Um, and then somebody who appears to be like homeless is knocking on the window, and he wants food. So of course, good guy cop and Yvonne let him in to have some food because that's what they do. And
Mhm.
then we find out after that it's actually an undercover reporter trying to get more stories. Probably the same one's been chasing him around the rest of the movie. Um, and the story comes out, and of course, this just rockets their stature even higher. Um, and then you see Charlie and Yvonne are talking about how they're going to leave together, and that they're kind of talking about what their life's going to be like. And little do they know that there is some sort of Good Samaritan fund that everyone's been donating to that's going to them. So then they show up back at the diner, I think it was, and there's just piles of letters. They go basically they get all these letters from this Good Samaritan fund, and they basically just get a ton of money from that, and then they
Mhm.
stay and just live out their dream life in New York.
So that's where I really feel like the movie is like it could happen too. Like you could be happy because
Oh yeah,
that's really because that's what happens to all of them in the end. Really,
I
like
gotcha.
that
Well,
they
Well,
found well
the wife loses the investment guy takes the wife's money, right?
yeah,
well
because he reveals it because it's even said in like post text, which I hate. Because I feel like that would have been the lovely bit of catharsis this movie desperately
mm,
needed.
Maybe if it was a comedy though, but it's a romantic comedy, so you can't. It'd be
Yeah,
too
but
harsh.
effectively, like he's a con man. He takes her money and then amscrays, but
Yeah.
right.
which is arguably the smartest thing anyone did in this movie.
Yeah.
But the fact that we didn't get to see that, I feel like that was the Schadenfreude that I just needed direct injected into my veins.
Yeah. I mean, it is strange that they just like did that. They didn't give the audience that full. Just give them a scene. You know,
Right.
where it's like, oh, that's the release, and it's like that. And that clears that out. Um. Anyways, yeah, I hate this movie. I'm sorry.
I
I bet. Yeah.
I liked this much less than Moonstruck, and Moonstruck was just more enjoyable to watch. And maybe it's good. Maybe Cher's just hot, you know.
That
I don't
was the
know.
one thing. Yeah. Cher was seeing Cher in that movie was definitely um, a little bit of an awakening for young me. I was like, damn. And then she came out with that. Then that was the same time she came out with. No, it wasn't. It was not the same time. Never mind. I'm so stupid. Forget it, guys. All right,
Um.
let's move on to the next topic.
All right. So, Josh, well, what's your solo ranking for this movie then?
All right, guys. I want to just, if it's okay, I actually I wrote some notes down about this one because I watched it
Yeah.
today.
Yeah. Let's go.
And here's what I would like to just say. My overall, I don't address Moonstruck in this, but my ranking for It Could Happen to You. The review is titled "F's All Around," and here is what I have to say about this movie. You
Okay.
guys really have to pick some better movies because this one was trash. I found it useful in the historiographical sense only. I'd like my time back. It is schlock, unadulterated pulp, I felt physically sick after watching, as I said earlier, and I had a real sense of trepidation about this segment after watching this movie because I thought, how bad is it really going to get? The only good thing about the movie is Nicolas Cage roller skating into a pond, and I'd like to ban this movie forever to the crap cage, which is what I'm calling the area
F-tier.
beneath it's beneath the F tier. It is only good for if you need me to put it in a grade, because if we have to go with the system, then it gets an F for me. But honestly, it never needs to be watched except to get funny Nicolas Cage clips. That's the only reason. You don't need any other context. Just take the funny moments. That's the only thing worth watching. And that's kind of the thing I realized about this is that Nicolas Cage is such a can give such powerful performances that regardless of what movies he's in, he's really good to like sample, right? And you can get like little hilarious moments and clips and crazy, weird, absurd things.
Bad, some comedy maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, but I think this is a movie that has essentially no redeeming qualities.
All right, Kudrow.
Wow. I don't know. I can't follow that up. Like that's a rant right there. I don't know. Like I see where Josh is coming from. I don't care for this movie either. As I said, like everything felt contrived. A lot of it felt forced. I don't even think the main conflict is legally possible.
Yeah, right.
Which just made it
We're way past that moment.
Which just made it feel so much worse. The characters are just one-off caricatures. I might have to go E again.
Yeah.
And I think it's just through virtue of the fact that there are maybe a couple chuckle-worthy moments in the movie, but that's it.
Yeah, so I agree with you. This movie's terrible. I agree with you. There's like so many senseless things. And additionally for me, just the single one noteness of every character, it seems. It just really seems like Mariel's an example. Like Mariel's super annoying, but it just seems like she's not a real person the way she's like written. It just a lot of the characters don't feel real.
Yeah. I'll agree that all the characters are one note, and Muriel was the note that was above the line. Right, so high, like her register was like intentionally grating.
So that actress, Rosie Perez, is that her voice normally, or is she speaking higher?
I'm guarantee it's played up. It is played up. She's been in other things.
Yeah, about to say I've seen her in other things, and that's why I feel like if it's not her real voice, I don't think it's that over exaggerated.
Gotcha.
That's the other thing about it, Colton, that I wanted to say. The one other thing that I did like to see in the movie was Wendell Pierce. Anybody out there knows The Wire, watches The Wire. He's a main character in The Wire, and he plays the Nicolas Cage's buddy cop, his partner.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But again, just like you said, like that actor is so amazing. He has such range, but he plays a cop in The Wire, but like his character in this movie was just like not even
right.
It was blah. It was just nothing there.
Yeah.
He's a guy who popping likes basketball. Cool.
So, I'm between E and F on this one, and I don't think it was good at all. But is it bad enough to be an F? Like, I kind of feel like it's still like a movie you can watch, because movies can get pretty bad. So I just don't know if I should leave that F open for something worse.
Because it is the lowest. It is the lowest ranking that's within the system.
Right, and I'm debating if it deserves to be that low. Like it definitely deserves to be an E. I just can't decide if it's as bad as an F. So I think I will go with an E. I think I'm going to go with an E. I don't think it's nearly bad enough to be an F. I'm going to put it just barely inching into the E category.
That's probably more reasonable.
That's all right. You can have movies you don't like.
We got an E, an F, and an unranked. That's our ratings.
Well, we should probably mention Quinn again. He did rate it before.
Oh, what did he rate it?
He gave this a C.
Quinn gave us a C.
Quinn gave both of these movies a C.
Oh, yeah. People missing the same as Moonstruck. I can't get behind that.
He's very forgiving.
Moonstruck at least has share.
Quinn has given it a C. So let's talk about where this fits in the overall here. All right, so it can't be any higher than a D. The question is, and with our higher ratings, where do you guys feel? I feel like my rating of an E should be where we put this movie. Because I don't think it deserves to be in the D category. It's just, as Josh has pointed out, just a bad movie. As you pointed out, Kudrow, half of it doesn't even make any sense.
I ranked it E2.
That's not a good argument.
So, yeah, I ranked it E2. So, I mean,
right,
it's Quinn that's disrupting the average here. When you think
likes
about
this
it.
movie.
You should do a weighted total.
Yeah, I'd see, but a weighted total, I don't want to, because I think it could vary from that in some cases. But I feel like I'm comfortable with E. And maybe with Quinn's argument, we'd get like maybe it's like an E plus, but still an E. So I think for now we'll put this as an E in our overall ranking of Cage tier. Any objections?
I mean, I can't agree to that. So it's like, but I basically have to just acquiesce to your opinion here because I'll be reasonable if you want to. It's probably not right to put it as an F because, we can. It's more so my personal tastes, as opposed to like thinking broadly. So I'll let it slide. But I mean, there's really. Oh man!
You really think that it deserves to be in the absolute lowest category?
I mean, with a leading question like that, no, of course I don't. But, but I don't know. I mean, no, man. Like I said, I mean, Quinn did give it a C, and his opinion does matter. So,
all right. So Quinn saved this from being an F.
I guess the thing is like I do want to take all the hosts into account in considering this, right? So if we're all in agreement that it can be as an E,
I have strong feelings that this should not be higher than an E. I don't have strong feelings it should not be an F, but it seems like maybe Quinn and Kudrow don't think it should be an F. So I think I'm comfortable with it fitting in the E for the overall tier.
I mean, it still has. I mean, even if the plot is contrived, it still has a plot. So I mean, I guess it still counts as a movie.
I mean, but movies don't need to have plots to be good.
Well, I guess that does effectively describe The Big Lebowski.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to nail down one thing that we're all going to agree on, right?
Right.
But
I think weighted average though, with 2 E's, a C, and what effectively amounts to a 0 from Josh. I feel like E is kind of where it averages out.
All right then.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It is settled. It could happen to you. Go ahead.
This movie is so far down in the rankings that it's right next to fucking Dinosaur Bones.
All right. It could happen to you. It gets an E on the overall ranking of Cage.
Man.